Thank you. It's great to be here, and I know I stand between you and a coffee break, so I'm going to try to be quick, I promise. Not long ago, a podcast I did published, and I said something in that podcast about product managers moving from just problem solvers to AI orchestrators. And the interesting thing, though, is I did the interview for that podcast last fall. And for whatever logistic reasons, it didn't publish until a couple months ago. And I couldn't remember everything I said in that interview. And I was actually a little bit embarrassed to even listen to it because I knew how much had changed in the 6 to 7 months that had passed from the time I did that interview to the time it published. That's how fast things are moving. I even considered, maybe the best presentation I could give is to stand here for 20 minutes, let you all meditate, and then leave, because then I won't say anything that's outdated by the time I walk off the stage, right? The reality is something I say today, by the time I get back to work, somebody on my team will tell me, oh, we changed that. So think of this as more as sort of opening the kimono a little bit. I'm going to share 2 use cases with you today about how we are trying to orchestrate agents at scale to turn some of our size and complexity into a competitive advantage. I'm going to share 2 examples with you, but it's very fresh. It's very new. At best, we're piloting these. They're not hardened approaches. And so I'm letting you learn with me, so to speak. And, we don't struggle with the challenge of finding scale and complexity at Walmart or Walmart International. I think most people think of scale when they think of Walmart. And if you take Walmart International, for example, now you're adding to that multiple countries, multiple languages, and the scale just increases. So one of the things I'm trying to do today is talk about how we are not staying up with the speed of AI, because I don't even know if that's possible anymore, but maybe how do we harness the power of AI and also leverage our complexity and turn it into a strength. Complexity isn't always seen as a strength. Complexity is often seen as something that slows you down, trips you up, causes entropy in your systems, for example. But I'm going to give you an early glimpse into some things we're learning about how we can harness AI and also turn some of our complexity and scale into a competitive advantage. Our new enterprise CEO, Daniel Denker, likes to say, we need to win because we're big, not despite the fact that we're big. And that's a little bit about what I'm talking about here. And finally, the last bit on that is that not only how it can, with our complexity, make us smarter, faster, et cetera, but can also make us more human. If you think about the billions of interactions that we have with customers around the globe, we want those to feel human. We want our values and our core purpose of saving money and live better to resonate in everything that we do. How can AI help us with that? Okay, so just a little bit about Walmart International. We are in 7 markets, which comprises about 18 countries, 22 languages, 30 different banners or brands. Now think about that. Does that add a little bit to the complexity formula and scale? It certainly does. I mean, language alone adds complexity. How do you translate all of that? And not just the basic things like, how do you translate the PDP? How do you translate a catalog of over 1 billion items with tens of thousands of attributes? And how do you do that real time for somebody who is doing search, for example? On top of that, in the past, our markets, we followed a decentralized strategy. So our markets were independent and free to build bespoke technology stacks. And now, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but now we're following a different strategy. We're following a global platform strategy. So we are having to migrate global platforms to all these markets who are now sitting on unique, bespoke legacy stacks that almost nobody understands anymore. And so this journey that we've been on to do really well in international and accomplish our strategic goals, but also harness the power of AI, and doing it in all these languages, it's been quite a journey. I'll tell you about a story, my first market visit. So I've been in international about 2 years. And prior to that, as they mentioned, I was at Sam's Club. My first market visit, I went to Mexico. That's our largest market. And that was a painful visit. Like, I'll be really transparent with you. What I heard was, yeah, Tim, we don't trust you guys at the center. You guys are slow. You guys don't listen to us. If somebody mentions that the center team is doing it, we roll our eyes. Some of my team is here, and some of them were actually worked in these markets, and they're chuckling. I know they are, because they know exactly what I'm talking about. So we didn't have a lot of trust. It's where I learned the term watermelon status. Has any of you ever heard this, where it's green on the outside but red on the inside? That really depicts how our market saw us. They thought even when things were going well, they didn't trust us, and they said, they're not really. It's just green on the outside. That said, let me fast forward a little bit to today. So about a year and a half later. I'm not going to speak to everything on this slide, but we've made a ton of progress in migrating these platforms. So we've already migrated our e-commerce, our marketplace, many of our supply chain platforms, merchandising tools and systems to our largest markets, Mexico and Canada. I've seen efforts like that take 3 to 4 years alone just for one business, and yet we're moving that fast with multiple businesses. We've even found time in all of this to innovate. There's a little tiny picture of Carrito Listo. For those of you who speak Spanish, you'll get it. But it's our home auto replenishment program in Chile, where we are using really sophisticated AI to predict what the customer wants, when they want it, and how much of it do they want. And we're getting accuracy beyond anything I ever thought that we'd see. So we've got these big global migrations going on. We're innovating in a really cool way in pockets. And how are we doing that? Well, a lot of it has to do with how we're harnessing AI. Finally, I loved what Jitu said earlier about learning is probably the most important skill. So we're going to learn together a little bit. One story, early on when I came into international, we were building a global customer insights dashboard, okay? And my team that was working on it, they're here too. Hinu, she's here. She showed it to me, and she's like, work in progress, Tim. And I said, it looks great. Let's share it with Kath McClay, our CEO of Walmart International. She's like, no, it's not ready, Tim. It's not ready. It's not polished. And I said, no, Kath's really product savvy. She gets this idea of seeing early prototypes and then iterating on it. And to pay off my point, I said, let's do it in public. So we were in a big meeting. Kath was presenting the yearly strategy, and we got on the agenda. And I did a live lean test with Kath, showing her this draft dashboard, and she gave us great feedback. So some of what I'm doing today is a live lean test with all of you. Find me on LinkedIn, send me feedback. Honestly, I'd love to hear it. And I will respond, believe it or not. Okay, so let's get into it. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Walmart Translation Platform. Like all companies, we love acronyms, so I'm going to call it WTP, all right? Before we built WTP, we were doing translation the old-fashioned way. So again, remember, 22 languages now that we're working with. And it's not just getting the words right that matters. For us, what matters is that we get the intent right. Sometimes you can translate the words perfectly and still get it wrong because you missed the intent of the words that were said. We were spending tens of millions of dollars a year, call it 25-ish million a year on the old-fashioned translators working with text on a page, okay? We were slow, and we could only really deliver in certain pockets. We hadn't really gone broad or scaled. We've achieved scale, speed, and for 1% of the cost that we had originally with WTP, okay? So, quickly. I did not know this was a build. I apologize for that. No need for that. Okay, I'm not going to cover every single one of these, but these are essentially the requirements of WTP. These are the pieces that had to be true, okay? We had to have an AI-enabled, multi-tenant foundation. Otherwise, we knew we wouldn't be able to do step number 2, which was expand the program into all the markets, the other languages. the other apps, et cetera, et cetera. We knew it had to be intelligent, so we wanted neural machine translation involved. We also knew, though, that we wanted to be able to automate even corrections where needed, so we introduced other LLMs into it that could do continuous quality assurance, et cetera, okay? What's not on this page, for lots of reasons, one is I really didn't even know how to depict it, if I'm honest with you. Somebody mentions about AI is ambiguous. Well, try to depict orchestration of AI agents. It's kind of hard to do. But what's really interesting is behind these requirements, the reason it's been successful is we have 2 layers of orchestration. The first one is what I'm calling just the human in the loop. And this is where expert linguists and also people who are experts on given cultures are looking at the anomalies that the LLMs find, and then they're writing rules. They're not just retranslating it to correct it. They're doing that, but then they're also writing a rule that makes the system smarter, right? I'm going to show you an example in a minute with t-shirt, the word t-shirt, and the many variants of the word t-shirt in the Spanish language. Well, the system now does it automatically. Well, why? It's because of this orchestration that we're doing with these linguists and culture experts. The second layer of orchestration we have here is the AI model itself. So a combination of neural machine translation and LLMs. And what's going on is these LLMs and the NMT are looking for every piece of signal and feedback it gets. The rules that the translators are writing certainly is an important signal that the system, the AI layer, is learning from. But it's also looking at customer feedback. It's also looking at anomalous behavior that doesn't seem to quite understand, and it's looking for, was that a translation issue? And so all of those signals, it's capturing all of those, and it's bringing those back in and learning from it. So think about it. Normally, all those signals, all those cultural variants, all the different ways you could articulate the word t-shirt, all the variants of the billions of items, et cetera. Think about all these signals coming in, and normally that would really slow us down. But with this AI orchestration, it's actually getting smarter. So the more complexity we can throw at it, the better it gets, and the faster it gets. We don't have to stop every time and retranslate the word t-shirt, for example. Now it's got it, right? In fact, I like to use the words, not only was WTP, can it survive complexity, but it metabolizes complexity. And I love thinking about it that way because it helps me as a product manager. It helps my team also think on what more can we teach it? What more complexity can we throw at it, right? Okay, so here's just an example, real life. These are screenshots, and I promised you the t-shirt example. I don't speak Spanish, so I apologize for the pronunciation here. But t-shirt in US English, as I understand it, is camiseta, something like that. Whereas in Chile, it might be polera. Versus in Mexico, I think it's playera. Okay, again, don't nail me for my bad translation or my bad accent there. But what we're finding is that the more of these we find, the more complexity we can throw at it, the better it's getting, and the more human it feels. Because if someone in Chile is searching for a t-shirt and they type in the word polera, and the search engine doesn't find it because it's looking for camiseta, for example, we're having a bad experience. And the folks in Chile, their customers don't know what's going on here, okay? And this really matters. Because again, if you hear the customer voice and if you put yourself in the shoes of the customer, I've seen data that says 71% of customers distrust a website if the translation's bad. So think about how quickly the experience can go bad if we're not getting this kind of thing right, okay? So, outcomes, results. I promise you that at one point in time, I had numbers on this page. Because it's so fresh, because it's so early, there were a lot of concerns with Tim, don't share numbers yet. That might all change next week, and that's fair. But let me articulate it this way. I'll say WTP right now is sustaining millions of daily translations, doing it within 20 milliseconds. so real time, really powerful, across 15 languages and too many apps to count. They're all leveraging this Walmart translation platform service. I love Doug's quote here. You know, the part he says about it's never been more important for us, right? Never been more important to reflect the customers that we serve. We want to be a Walmart for everyone. And powerful orchestration of AI like we built into WTP is enabling us to do that. It won the President's Innovation Award, which is the highest technology honor that you can get at Walmart. It comes from Doug McMillan himself. He chooses the winner. And it was quite an honor to be associated with the fantastic engineers and product and designers who brought this to life. Okay, second example, quickly. We're not good at brand naming our products internally. We call it Telos Orchestrator. That's good enough, I'll call it. This is our AI orchestration for reliable product management. Think of Telos as like this super smart project manager that manages up to 10 to 15 specialized agents that we've built for product managers. These specialized agents and Telos itself are built on top of the Walmart brain or our RAG, right? So in other words, they're learning from our Confluence system. They're learning from Jira. They're learning from our global customer insights dashboard. And this is really important because, again, back to that point of scale and complexity, I can't even count the number of products we're working on just in international alone, probably thousands if I'm honest. And all of that information and all of that data is now being consumed and absorbed by Telos, by this orchestrator. It's really important because it builds confidence with the product managers that they can trust the output from these agents. And the mission of Telos is really simple. It's really simple. It's fast. It's compress the time it takes to go end to end of the product development lifecycle, okay? Now, I'll tell you a little bit of a journey here that we've been on. This started in 2023. And in 2023, we weren't yet approved to use company devices on any LLM. We were too worried about information security, et cetera. So I had a product manager who was quite technical. His name was Vipul. He lives here in the Bay Area. And I said, Vipul, this weekend, do me a favor. Go home on your personal computer and just play around with it. It was one of the first ChatGPT releases. I said, go play with it. See what it can do for product managers. Vipul came back after the weekend. His eyes were like big. And he's like, Tim, you have no idea what this can do. And with each subsequent chat release, he'd say, I used to feel like I was dealing with sort of a bratty teenager. Now I'm dealing with a PhD level professor. And what he was finding was he was given it, pick a product manager deliverable, right? He was focused on user stories because it's a frequent failure point. If we get that wrong, often everything downstream goes wrong, right? And so he was really interested in that. And the quality of the user stories that even the early models were writing were really good. So fast forward, we finally get our own Walmart governed AI environment, including how we build and deploy and track agents and all that middleware. And we're able to now do this. So we built Product Assist. Product Assist was a specialized agent that just did what Vipul was doing, which was user stories and testing criteria, okay? We rolled it out, we scaled it, we went big. It went to like almost 3,100 product managers across the Walmart enterprise. And not only did we see good adoption, what we saw is we started to learn that it was fast, sometimes as much as 80% quicker. We saw that it was accurate. Somewhere around almost 90% of the time, its output was accepted as is by the product manager, right? And so we said, there's something here. All right, I won't cover every single one of the dots on the road, but fast forward is this natural progression. We're like, if it can do really good with user stories, what can it do for everything that product managers and designers do? And then we commenced to build specialized agents all throughout the product development lifecycle. One of the guys on the team here, Gaurav, I think he's right there. Is that you, Grav? Hey, man. One of the things he's doing is that he's the one who's standing up these agents super fast. And we're just getting into the mix, and we're just learning, and we're seeing what it does. So again, think about working across thousands of products, all these languages, all these markets, migrating legacy systems that very few people understand. And yet, how are we going so fast? And it's because we're augmenting our product managers. We're automating a lot of what they used to have to do. And now we're freeing them up to be far more strategic and far more creative. This is sort of our best attempt to depict agent orchestration. And it's not rocket science. If you just think about the product development lifecycle from discovery, design, build, launch, we're building these specialized agents all along the journey. One of my leaders by the name of Chapa, early on, he was about to develop a product for our global sourcing managers, these guys who go across the globe and find high quality items and ingredients for our customers. And he wanted to build them a commodities product that would make them smarter about the commodities market, would bring them real-time proactive information, and so forth and so on. So as they start this, they had an LOE from the engineers of about 32 weeks, okay, to get to UAT. So Chapa said, well, we didn't even have Telos built yet. We didn't have the orchestrator. We just had the specialized agents. But Chapa said, I'm going to do it. So what they did was they used the agents all the way throughout. And instead of 30 to 32 weeks, it took them 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, they were UAT ready, UAT code ready. Now, again, it's really fun to think about scaling that number to everything that we do, but I'm using caution, and I'm not going to do that yet. But what I will say is that, well, I'll show you some quotes in a minute from those global sourcing managers and what they thought of that process. I just wanted to comment briefly on the pillars of trust. I think this is really important. Our product managers, I've learned, have to trust this. If they don't trust it, they'll game it. They'll pretend to work on it, and then they'll just ignore what the agents are doing, and they'll do their own work, which is not at all the outcome that we want. So we listened really carefully, and we still are listening, because again, this is fresh, right? And as we listened to them, what we learned is that they had to trust the orchestrator. They had to trust that the output from one agent would get precisely picked up and carried over to the next agent without the PM being involved. That's what the orchestrator does. It takes output from one agent to the other. It also is trained to look for anomalies, to look for decision points, knowing when to prompt the product manager in. So they have to trust that this agent is tying it together. The other thing is that they have to trust the Walmart brain or our RAG, right? They have to trust that it's on living systems that are frequently updated, that it's not old or stale and working off of old information. And then finally, evaluator and critic. These are our agents that we've built that are just looking for hallucination. It's fascinating. Someday, go out there and do a chat prompt, take the whole thing and put it into Gemini and say, what do you think? Gemini will find all the hallucinations for you. And this vice versa. This happens both ways. And one of the insights we found is that when we do that, and we do it a lot, and we do it at scale, we can almost get all of the hallucinations out, even before it comes back to the product manager. So all of these pillars of trust have helped build adoption, okay? And again, all of our complexity is not overwhelming Telos. It's actually, Telos is organizing all that chaos, and it's, again, hardening from it. It's building more institutional intelligence and orchestration intelligence. Okay, again, I promise this did have numbers, but I've spoken to it a little bit. We're seeing it's going faster, it's effective, it's very, very high quality. These quotes came from the business users, the end users of the product that we built in 8 weeks. You know, not trying to hype this, it's just working very well, right? How often do you want to hear that from a business user? Or it's great to see the speed with which the commodity enterprise work is coming along. I've never heard that from a business user, even ones that like me, you know, and trust me. They're like, you guys are too slow, Simmons. Like, that's all I've heard my entire career in product. But this is a first, right? Wow, love how fast this is going. Okay, so I'll wrap up there. I want to thank you for your attention, for listening right up against the coffee break. So I'll just say that, yes, AI is moving super fast. And yes, by the time I get over there, Gaurav and team probably will have changed something. And so something I said is now wrong. Let's just all deal with it, right? And what I'd say is, what we're learning is let's not try and slow it down. Let's not try and freeze things. Instead, let's try to orchestrate agents and harness all that intelligence and power, because when you do that, complexity and scale can actually become a competitive advantage. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.